Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ya. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me. Of course, everybody's in the house today. And today, we're going to be doing a little bit of a recap of Game 4 for a couple series and Game 5 for a couple other series. So, of course, before we jump into all of that today, temperature check. How's everybody doing?
Man, 3-1. Not many people can say
man.
that.
3-1, man. Feels great. It feels great on this side.
Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of days of hoops. You know, a couple series went 3-1. We got a couple 3-2s now. So, you know, of course, I'm looking forward to jumping into all of that. But today, you know, I rewatched our last episode, and I noticed my energy was a little bit off. So today, you know, I'm going to try to bring the energy. I was a little bit exhausted in our last episode, so we got a lot to get into today. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Yesterday, we had the New York Knicks go up against the Miami Heat. Game 4 for that series, and the Miami Heat were able to take a commanding 3-1 lead on the New York Knicks by winning this game 109-101. So let's go ahead and get our thoughts about that game.
I think what stood out was I feel like every time the Knicks would make a push, we had an answer for everything that they did, whether it was a Strus 3, whether there's a Kevin Love 3, whether it was a Cody Zeller layup, and Bam really played and asserted himself on the offensive glass. And one thing that he did really well is I feel like on the offensive glass, he made sure that he was boxing out on Mitchell Robinson. I like this series. He's done a great job of just nullifying the offensive rebounding because it's been a struggle for these guys on the offensive glass. I mean, Julius Randle hasn't been able to get to the offensive glass. Isaiah Hartenstein hasn't been able to get to offensive glass. Just Bam has done a great job of just boxing out. And of course on the defensive end, we know what he's gonna bring. And then Jimmy Butler, again, he's gonna contribute. And one thing that I really like about Jimmy Butler is he's never gonna force the action. Whenever he gets the ball, he's gonna make the right choice. And in this game, they were throwing bodies at him. They threw about 3 at one play, and then he kicked it out for a Kevin Love 3. And you know, he's just gonna make the right play every time. And one thing that was just ridiculous to me, if I was a Knicks fan in that fourth quarter, was just the offensive rebound. It was just we got to everything. We were just chasing the glass, and it's crazy because the Knicks are one of the best, if not the best, rebounding team in the NBA. And you know, just on the offensive glass, they were just getting punished. And you know, there's going to be complaints about these ticky-tacky fouls that they were getting, but honestly, they really were fouls. I mean, they were being overly aggressive. They just weren't being smart. I don't think that dictated the game enough for them to put the blame on that. They gave up about 7 offensive rebounds in that fourth quarter. I mean, how can you blame that on foul trouble? You didn't just do a good job of boxing out. So, you know, I'm really happy with this. I didn't expect it to be this much. If just at no point in this series have I felt like the Knicks had control. Even in that game 2 that they won, that was without Jimmy Butler. I just at this point, you know, the Knicks this Julius Randle fit is just not working. I mean, you know, you can excuse maybe the first playoff run and be like, you know, he wasn't playing with great spacing and you know he didn't have another co-star with him, but you know RJ Barrett has been playing great so far in these playoffs outside of those 2 games that he had against Cleveland in the beginning. And since then, Julius Randle's just been a playoff dropper. He hasn't been able to get to really what he wants to do in these playoffs, and it's just been a struggle. And Jalen Brunson, he's been a star in these playoffs. So, you know, there's some tough choices. I really doubt that they'll move on from Julius Randle. He is the 82 game kind of guy, but you know, in these playoffs, it's just been tough sledding for him.
Man, great win for Miami, you know? And it's the same, you know, how the whole series, you know, they're coming in playing physical, and it showed in the third quarter and fourth quarter of this game, you know, them offensive rebounds getting, you know, second chance opportunity, third chance opportunities, and guys like Max Strus and Caleb Martin and Kyle Lowry, you know, role players showing up, Bam, you know, playing fantastic on the offensive side of the ball, and Jimmy, 27 and 10, you know, he didn't do much, you know, he didn't have to, you know, come in with his heroics, but you know, he had a fantastic game. He had got to step up on the offensive side of the ball. And, you know, the Knicks is just, again, giving up second chance points, giving the physicality level on the defensive side of the ball for them, you know, losing the rebounding battle. You know, they're one of the best rebounding teams in the season, and them coming into the playoffs against the Heat, they're losing the battle, you know, bar the game too. Every other game, they lost the rebounding battle. And to me, Julius Randle, this fit hasn't worked. He's either in foul trouble, he's either not shooting well, and he fouled out this recent game. And guys coming off the bench, role players, coming off the bench for them, they didn't contribute. Guys like Josh Hart, he fouled out. Guys like, Obi Toppin, he hasn't done much lately in this series. And, shout out to Brunson. He's been playing fantastic all this series, but it's a one-man army. RJ Barrett has his time, he has played fantastic, a couple games, but other than that, they haven't had anybody else contribute to the team. So it's tough for the Knicks. I said Miami was the better team every single game. Even without Jimmy Butler game 2, they could have won, and this series could have been over 4-0. But I feel like they got a chance to end it 4-1. A little gentleman sweep, and it's gonna be tough for the Knicks coming this offseason. They're gonna have some questions about Julius Randle.
Yeah, man, who would have thought the 8th seed Miami Heat are one game away from clinching a third Eastern Conference Finals appearance in 4 years, especially with the way the regular season went for the Miami Heat. Not even Miami Heat fans could have pictured this in their wildest dreams. But to go ahead and get back to this game, man, this game, the Knicks came out with a sense of urgency a little bit. It was a little bit of a back and forth. In that second half specifically, in that third quarter, both teams were throwing haymakers at each other. And yes, the fouls did kind of play a part in this entire game. The Knicks being in foul trouble, Julius Randle fouling out in that fourth quarter, Jalen Brunson having 5 fouls, Josh Hart, a guy that's been a key player for the Knicks rotation, being in foul trouble for the course of the game, fouling out towards the end. So a lot of these guys that they had to play, plug and play throughout the course of this game were guys that don't necessarily, play a lot of minutes in their rotation. So, Tibbs did have to make an adjustment and working on the fly with a lot of his key guys in foul trouble, but doesn't excuse the performance that was put on display in that fourth quarter. I think things might have been looking upwards for the New York Knicks in that game up until the fourth quarter, and they just pretty much lost the series. That's where when the New York Knicks end their season, whether it's in Game 5 or whether it's in Game 6, that's a quarter they're gonna look back on and be like, man, I wish we can get that quarter back, because I believe they allowed about 7 or 6 offensive rebounds, and it looked like guys just didn't want to, grab a board. Obviously, you can 1 or 2 offensive rebounds you can let go. That's fine. Just the way the ball bounces off the rim, it happens sometimes. But for 6, 7 times in one quarter, that's just ridiculous. And I think the Miami Heat in one possession had like 3 or 4 opportunities at getting a couple points, and so the hustle wasn't there. The level of physicality wasn't there. The heart wasn't there. Julius Randle pretty much had a lackluster performance, finishing the game with 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists. We talked about him in our last episode. Like, who is Julius Randle come playoff time? This is a guy who's on the verge of making an All-NBA team, had an All-Star level season. He's an All-NBA level talent, but he doesn't play up to all NBA level expectations come playoff time. And so, it's if I'm a Knicks fan, my head is hot. I'm gone. I'm fuming because, you come into this series, you were the favorites to beat the Miami Heat, this Miami Heat team, without their 3-level scorer and Tyler Hero. And next thing you know, you're down 3-1 to these guys. And the crazy part is that one game you won was a game where Jimmy Butler was in street clothes on the sideline. So how confident are you in this entire series when the one game you got under your belt is a game where their best player wasn't out there on the floor, and it was a battle to even win that game on your home floor? And so, for Jalen Brunson and RJ Barrett, if I'm those two guys specifically, I'm pissed as well. I'm pissed at Julius Randle for the effort he put out there on display in Game 4. Game 4. That's kind of because Julius Randle, you're supposed to be one of the top guys in this franchise. This Jalen Brunson is going to bring it. RJ Barrett's going to bring it. But Julius Randle is supposed to be that second guy to Jalen Brunson. But throughout the course of the playoffs, he just hasn't been that guy. And so, this is a tough loss for the New York Knicks. All the credit in the world to the Miami Heat for playing their butts off. Jimmy Butler, Bam. You had Caleb Martin come off the bench, Kyle Lowry contributing off the bench. This little role that he's got with this Miami Heat team coming off the bench is a good fit. It's a good fit for them. And, Eric Spoelstra cooked that up. So, the Miami Heat being one game away from, making the Eastern Conference Finals again, it's just crazy to think about. But before we move on from this game, there's a question I do pose to you guys. And so it is, after looking at the rest of the Eastern Conference and with the way the playoffs are shaping up, how confident are we in this Miami Heat team to make the NBA Finals?
I'm pretty confident at this point. I mean, you took down Giannis and the Bucks, and now you took down the Knicks, and at that point, it's everything is on the table. I'd say I'm about like a 9 out of 10, like in terms of confidence and just like making the finals. And the reason why is like you can't show me anything like new that Miami haven't already just ran into the first these two series. I mean, you beat Giannis and you beat the Knicks. What's left? You know, you can either get the inconsistent Celtics or you go up against Doc Rivers. So I think at this point, like I'm pretty confident in what will happen next. So
Yeah, I'm gonna give him an A. I'm pretty confident, and I'm like I'd be said, they beat the Bucks already, and they're playing a good Knicks team there that earned their spot in the second round. And I feel like the inconsistent Boston, the Sixers, they're inconsistent as well. And Doc Rivers coaching them is gonna be. I feel like Miami has a great chance, so I'm gonna give them I'm about an 8.
I mean, I think you guys make great points. I think when you look at the landscape of the Eastern Conference right now, and how it's shaping up right now, with the Milwaukee Bucks, like a team that was the 1 seed coming into this postseason, getting knocked out by this Miami Heat team. I feel like when you come into the postseason with Eric Spoelstra, Bam, Jimmy Butler, you kind of have that confidence in your franchise to kind of just withstand anything that comes your way. Because at the end of the day, these guys are kind of built for the postseason. And throughout the course of this season, I've said that the Miami Heat, they're kind of a team that goes up one season, kind of takes a dip the next. But they're trying to break the cycle now. And with the way things are going right now, I think these guys are definitely going to clinch the Eastern Conference Finals for sure. And I will definitely say I'm extremely confident in this Miami Heat team, simply because to make the NBA Finals, simply because I feel like the Philadelphia 76ers, although I'm not the biggest fan of them, they are a threat. But at the end of the day, I think the Miami Heat can take care of business in that series. It's going to be tough. And then for Boston, we all know how great they can be. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, I know Jimmy Butler wants some revenge with those guys. So I know he wants some smoke. So regardless of who comes out, Jimmy Butler's just ready for what's to come. And so I would say I'm confident as well. But, man, oh man, if any, this Eastern Conference Finals push, thinking a little far ahead now, with this Eastern Conference Finals run that these guys are on, this should be a wake-up call to Pat Riley to acquire another superstar for this team. I think, Jimmy Butler is always going to perform in the postseason. Eric Spoelstra is always going to be a great coach. You got Bam, who's an anchor on the defensive end. If they're just able to add one more piece, one more superstar to this mix, these guys can not only kind of just get over that hump to, achieve the ultimate goal, which is winning an NBA championship, but these guys can also kind of have a set foundation for years to come. Because Tyler Hero, a guy who hasn't been playing throughout the course of this postseason, will be coming back within a week or so. That's his, return timetable from that broken hand injury, and he's a young and up and coming star in this league. So he'll be ready to go, and you can kind of build with him moving forward. For right now, with this window of opportunity that they got, I think they do have to go out there and get it and acquire another superstar for these guys to consistently compete for that NBA championship and to kind of, move the doubters out of the way, because each and every year the Miami Heat, they don't necessarily take the regular season that serious. We all know Jimmy Butler, who he is come postseason time. So I think Pat Riley does need to look himself in the mirror and look at this franchise. And, it's cool to have all these undrafted guys on the roster. It's cool to give these guys a chance. But at some point, you do got to acquire some superstars to Miami. It is your big city, big franchise. And I think they should be able to make that thing work. But now we go ahead and move on to the second game of that on that night of last night's doubleheader. We have the Los Angeles Lakers go up against the Golden State Warriors in Game 4. Tight, very, very tight battle. This game will be remembered as a Lonnie Walker game. And the Los Angeles Lakers were able to win this game 104-101 to also take a commanding 3-1 lead in this series. So let's go ahead and get our thoughts on that.
I think, like, for me, the biggest takeaway is, like, at every point, or at least there's in every game for the Lakers, there has been a role player that stepped up, whether it's been Rui Hachimura that's won them a game against the Grizzlies, whether it's been Austin Reeves against the Grizzlies, whether it's been Dennis Schroeder, whether it's been D'Angelo Russell, whether it's been Lonnie Walker this time. I think that's the importance of having role players that step up. And, LeBron James doesn't have to be the LeBron James that we know and we're accustomed to. He can be the LeBron James where he can still put up 23, 24 a night and exert more energy on the defensive end. Anthony Davis doesn't have to put up 30 something a night. He can be 25 and have his elite defense. So having role players that consistently step up in these positions. I feel like it's just so super critical. And Lonnie Walker, he came in, and I think that's a lot of credit to Darvin Ham. Not a lot of guys are ready to just buy in, and not a lot of guys just stay locked in and stay ready like that. Lonnie Walker came in and he dropped 15 in the fourth quarter. I mean, who would have guessed that he would have done that of all people? And so another takeaway was for me is just, it's kind of odd seeing Klay Thompson shoot only 11 times. That's to me like almost close to a red flag. I always expect Klay Thompson to consistently just keep shooting, keep firing, and for him to only have 11 shots is just it's wild to me. And him and Curry, I think, combined 6 for 24 from the 3-point line, so they really struggled getting their 3-point shots off. And Anthony Davis just killing Draymond Green. It's been terrible. I mean, Draymond Green doesn't even look at the basket, and that's a problem for me. Like, if you're not a scoring threat, and the NBA offenses are too complex and they're too smart, and on the defensive end, they're too complex for you to not be able to have some sort of scoring threat. If Draymond Green is not going to put up points, Anthony Davis is just going to crush you. He's going to crush you on that end. So, another big thing is Jordan Poole. Sounds like there's a lot of tension going on over there. Could he be out? We don't know yet, but he's really taking a step back. There's been a lot of regression in this season, and especially in the playoffs. So, there's a lot of question marks about this team and what's going on with it, whether it's imploding or not. We have to see. So,
Man, shout out my Lakers, man. We up 3-1, man. It's a beautiful scene. I said in 6, but I think we closed it out in the Bay Area in 5. But man, huge fourth quarter from Lonnie Walker. Coming into the game, he's barely played in the playoffs. He's barely played. He's basically been out the lineup the last 2 months, and he gets inserted into this game. Big, huge fourth quarter. He big shots over Curry. They were hunting Curry on the defensive side of the ball in the fourth, and he was hitting his shots. LeBron was deferring to him, AD was deferring to him, and it comes down to your role players showing up. And like I've said, every other game or every game, AD and LeBron have somebody stepping up. It's either Rui, it's either D'Lo, it's either Schroeder, it's either Reeves, it's now Lonnie Walker. His opportunity came in the fourth, and he was hitting some big shots for us. And that fourth quarter defensively, we stepped up. Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, I think they combined for 9 points in total. They in 3 for like 14, 3 for 15. They were not shooting amazing. Williams had an okay game. Curry shot 3 for 13 from the 3. I think he was like 12 for 31, 30-something points. But, in the fourth quarter, their offense was just nonchalant. They took 17 shots in that fourth quarter. I think Curry had 11 of those shots. The ball was getting moved around. And they were relying a lot on Steph Curry Magic to play hero ball and save him, and that didn't work. Shout out AD, generational talent on the defensive side of the ball. And those last 2 shots that he forced on Curry, tough shots. A fadeaway, step back, mid range style, and 30, almost a 35-foot 3 that was long gone. Feel like they had an opportunity, to slow down the ball after Draymond got that offensive rebound. They're down 1. He's on the ball with Schroeder on him, and he kicks it out to Curry, and he rushes a shot with like 12 seconds left on the clock for them. And felt like Steve Kerr, he panicked down late in the end, took out what was working. He subbed out GP2, went with a different lineup, and it was the small things that the Warriors missed. But the Lakers, man, big fourth quarter from Lonnie Walker. Shout out Reeves too. He's playing horrible this whole series, and 21 points this game, 7 for 15, four steals, 3 threes, and he hit some big shots early in the fourth quarter for us to get us going and to tie the game early on in the fourth. But big game from Lonnie. We're up 3-1 back in the Bay Area for Game 5, and I think we close it out. Come on.
I've thought a little too long and hard about this game within the last 24 hours to figure out where it went wrong for the Golden State Warriors, and it's things were looking upwards for them. I think this lineup change with slotting in GP2 into that spot over JaMychal Green was a good move for Steve Kerr and this team. I feel like GP2, he can kind of get to the basket. His decision making is a lot better than guys like JaMychal Green or DiVincenzo and stuff like that. And the Warriors really needed a guy to kind of contain D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell got off to a very, very hot start in that game 3, I believe. And last game, he only played 31 minutes, finished with 4 points, and really struggled shooting from the field, 1 for 10 and 0 for 4 from 3. But the Lakers, the one thing that they've been great at since that trade deadline, of course, number one being defense. Number two, Darwin Ham's in-game adjustments. In the first half, they looked a little bit confused. With GP2 being in the lineup, they didn't necessarily know what the Warriors are trying to throw at them. Obviously, the Warriors are going to run a lot of Steph Curry pick and roll action. So the reason why Steph Curry ended up finishing with a triple double was because very similar to what he was doing in game two. He was very dominant on the ball. The Warriors play their best when their best player has the ball for the majority of the game. And it confused the Lakers a little bit, but coming out of halftime, the Darwin Ham made an amazing adjustment. I believe AED started out the second half on Andrew Wiggins in that corner, kind of allowing whoever was guarding GP2 in that pick and roll action to kind of just drop down. And if Steph Curry drove into the paint, Anthony Davis was waiting for him, and they were living with Andrew Wiggins shooting 3-pointers. So it worked out extremely well. But the Warriors really let the ball drop in that fourth quarter. I think they started off that fourth quarter with a 7-point lead. They ended off that third quarter extremely strong with a corner 3-pointer by Moses Moody, I believe. And the next thing you know, the Lakers answer the bell in that fourth quarter, starting off the quarter on a 7-0 run themselves to tie the game up. And they didn't really look back. The Lakers always need a guy to step up in any game, and each and every game they're getting contributions from all their role players. And in this game, it just so happened to be Lonnie Walker, a guy who earned his minutes after that game 2 blowout by playing all those minutes in the fourth quarter, really showing Darwin Ham something and allowing, earning the trust of Darwin Ham to be involved in this series. And so, Lonnie Walker was hitting some tough shots. I do believe Steve Kerr could have made a better adjustment in that fourth quarter instead of going with Moses Moody and instead of just going back to the starting lineup with GP2 in the rotation. I think GP2 probably could have done a better job at containing Lonnie Walker and trying to slow him down in that fourth quarter, but letting Lonnie Walker go one-on-one with Steph Curry. Steph Curry is not the greatest defender in the world, but he's always going to give you the effort on that side. So, and I kind of understand why he kind of went in that direction, simply because GP2 is not going to be respected on the 3-point line. So if you throw in Moses Moody in there, a guy who's a 3-and-D high IQ basketball player, you can kind of spread the floor out offensively and kind of let Steph do his thing, pretty much what he's been doing throughout the course of the three quarters going into that fourth. But I think, Steph Curry, those 2 shots that he got towards the end of the game, we kind of live with those shots. Anthony Davis, hell of a defender. I'm very, very happy that he's getting his flowers in this postseason. And, everybody talks about his inconsistencies and all that stuff. But, one thing that remains the same each and every game is his effort on the defensive side of the ball. And so, him guarding Steph Curry with the game on the line, really forcing him to take a tough step back jumper that looked good when you look at the replay. But Anthony Davis, being the 7-footer he is with the long, wingspan that he's got, he really made it tough on Steph Curry to try to make that jumper. The next thing you know, Draymond gets a rebound, doesn't even look at the basket. And Steph Curry even admitted himself that he kind of rushed that shot over AD to kind of take a 2-point lead in that situation. So you kind of live with those shots when you're Steph Curry. He could shoot it from 94 feet. The Warriors, at the end of the day, they're still going to live with it because that's their best player, and he's the only one that had it going. So overall, hell of a game by the Lakers. This is probably the second time in the postseason these guys have relied on somebody else to close out the game other than LeBron James and AD. Going back to that Memphis series, Austin Reeves scoring 15 points in that fourth quarter in game 1 to steal a game on the road in Memphis. Now you got, Lonnie Walker showing up in game 4 to take a commanding 3-1 lead. It's tough, man. It's tough. Jordan Poole not necessarily contributing, not even scoring a single point in 10 minutes of play, being pretty much unplayable. It's just extremely tough, man. The Warriors got an uphill battle to come back in this series, man. It's tough, but moving on from this game for a little bit, I do want to talk about Jordan Poole. We haven't really shed a lot of light on his, performance throughout the course of this postseason. We shared our piece about it here and there, but what's the verdict on Jordan Poole? Do we believe this guy's a good basketball player, or did he legally rob the Warriors this past offseason?
I think he's a good basketball player. Don't get me wrong. I think it made sense for the Warriors to pay him that money. I mean, like, he came in, they were not having this expectation of him last season, and he came in and he contributed at a very high level. He was a major playoff performer for, the beginning of the playoffs against the Nuggets, and then against the Mavs, and then at some point in the Celtics series, it was hard to keep him on the floor for that long. But even then, he found his moments to contribute, and as a starter during that season, he's averaging 25, so everything was looking up and bright for Jordan Poole. And this season, I think the combination of, whether that's the issues with Draymond Green and, the inconsistent start going from starter to bench, and then his play himself took a step back. I think, it's just, it's like a combination of factors. I think he's a good basketball player. Don't get me wrong. But I think people did jump the gun on Jordan Poole a bit. I feel like they put him in a position where he shouldn't have been put in. I don't think he's on this pedestal that a lot of Warriors fans were putting him in, and he's in a lot of discussions that he shouldn't have been in. So I think he is a good basketball player, but I wouldn't go as far as say he robbed the Warriors. I think that's a little bit extreme, but I will say that people did jump the gun.
He robbed the Warriors, bro. I 140 mil for 10 minutes. I'll go 0 for 4. No production on offense, no production on defense, and you can get paid 140 million dollars for 10 minutes. That's highway robbery. I promise you. I promise you. They expected this guy to be the sixth man coming off the bench. The guy that's going to lead the bench unit, one of the best bench players in the NBA. That's what they paid him for last year. He stepped up in the playoffs, like you said, against the Nuggets, against the Mavs, and somewhat against the Memphis. He was playing good, but when he played the Celtics, it was tough to watch because he didn't produce as they expected. But they won the finals. He played okay. He got paid, and now this season, everything's down. His field goal percentage, his 3-point percentage, his efficiency, everything. Defensively, he's a cone on defense, and you come to the playoffs. He's averaging, I think, 10 points. It's all series, both series against the Kings. He was, getting cooked on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, he wasn't contributing against the Kings. And, they said in the beginning it was an ankle injury. He got healthy and he still wasn't producing. Now you see it against the Lakers. 4 games in, he's playing. He's a non-factor. Every game that he has played in against the Lakers in the playoffs, from game 1 to about to be game 5, his minutes has dwelled down lower and lower and lower every single time. And it's tough to see him play. They don't know what to do with him offensively. He's too erratic. I feel like he doesn't want to do the team's offense. He wants to show off. He wants to ISO ball. He wants to make highlight plays. And defensively, he doesn't even try. He's just a cone on defense, regardless of who you put him on. So for me, I feel like it's a robbery. I don't know what they're gonna do with him. I feel like mentally he's not part of the team. He's not passionate enough for the Warriors brand of basketball, and hey, that's what happens when you get paid as a young guy. So hey, I feel like he robbed the Warriors.
I don't think he robbed the Warriors. I'm just not a big fan of his body language. Obviously he's struggling. He struggled throughout. He struggled against the Sacramento Kings. He's struggling now against the Lakers. All the eyes are on him. Every time he's going off the court, every time he's on the court, everybody's talking about him. He's in the media 24/7. When it was looking good for you, it's obviously a lot of people are gonna praise you when things are looking right, but when you're down and out, obviously you got to resort to these guys that are in the locker room for you. And I feel like he's not really buying into what the Warriors are trying to sell. And obviously that it all starts when with the whole situation with him and Draymond and in this past off season and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like you as a player have to kind of dig yourself out of this hole that you're in. And Jordan Poole, he's a hell of a player. We've seen this guy at the highest of highs. He's an NBA champion for a reason. And he got that money for a reason. But Joe Lacob and Steve Kerr don't want to see you on the bench in the fourth quarter. You got to find a way to be better on the when you're getting minutes on the floor. And in this series and in last series, it's just been tough for Jordan Poole to find his footing. And I've tried to give this guy multiple excuses. The injury that he suffered in that King series with the ankle injury, I believe. So we gave him a pass there, and then now in this Los Angeles Lakers series, I feel like the effort's not even there. So it's like mentally he's kind of checked out during a time where the Warriors need him the most. In the series where Klay Thompson is inconsistent, Andrew Wiggins isn't really there offensively. Jordan Poole has to be that guy to step up and assist Steph Curry. In the scoring in the stat sheet. When you look at the numbers, Steph Curry's going to put up his 30, but they need a guy like Jordan Poole who's coming off the bench for them to contribute about 22 to 25 points, to help this team get to where they want to go. And so, right now things are looking down for Jordan Poole, but at the end of the day, it's only on him to kind of get him out of this. It's only on him to get him out of this funk that he's in. There's nobody else that can kind of help him get him out of this little situation that he's in right now. I didn't like how he kind of treated the media yesterday when he's going into the locker room, everyone's trying to talk to him, and he kind of has his music playing, and he's talking about I can only control what I can control. I can't control the opportunity that's being given to me, but and that's all. He pretty much had one word answers. And so the body language, and when all the eyes are on you, all the pressure in the world's on you, you gotta step up and kind of be that leader that the Warriors are expecting you to be for the future, because as we all know, the Warriors have been trying to run this double timeline gimmick for, throughout the course of this season, and it hasn't worked out in their favor. And Jordan Poole's supposed to be the face of all of that. And so for him not to kind of, be the face of all of that and, kind of doing what he's doing now, it's not a good look for him, man. So he's got to fix up. And, every game right now is an elimination game. It's a winner go home situation. So if the Warriors want to get to that next round, they're going to need some contributions from him, and he's going to have to wake up, extremely fast from this little funk that he's in. But Jordan Poole aside, I feel like I have to ask this question, but can the Warriors come back in this series?
No.
No.
And the reason why I say that is this is not the same team as last year. Last year, if this was the same Warriors team, I would have said I think they have a chance of making a comeback. But it just feels like the Warriors have kind of shifted from that team identity to like a bunch of guys that have like a me identity. You have Jordan Poole, and his whole issues that's going on, and you have Draymond Green there, who it just seems completely unplayable at times offensively against this Warriors team. You have Klay Thompson, who's extremely inconsistent. You have Andrew Wiggins, who I feel like people haven't pointed out that this is a guy that was missing from basketball for about 2 months. Like, that's just not easy to get your conditioning and your level of play back. Like, I understand he had his moments against the Kings, but this is against the Lakers. Like, it's hard for you to catch up 2 months of basketball. Like, I feel like people are missing that point, is that this guy's been gone for a long time. And Dante DiVincenzo, he's someone that people haven't pointed out either. He's struggling. He's struggling. He hasn't been what the Warriors have needed for him to be, contributing off the bench. Like, I feel like he hasn't been that type of player that he was in the regular season. There's just like a lot of identity politics going on this team. And if it was a team last year, I would have said, yeah, they have a chance. But this team right now, I don't feel like it has a chance at all.
Dynasty's over, man. LeBron's ending it here. So it's done. That team's about to break up. Draymond's gone. Jordan Poole, they don't know what they're going to do with him. Curry's 35. Klay Thompson's, pretty much washed. And we've seen it from his last 2 games. And I feel like, Lakers are about to end this. It's 3-1. It's time to end this dynasty. And I feel like people are going to be like, it's the Lakers. They're this, they're that. We started off 2-10, and this is the defending champs for taking out the playoffs. So I don't think they have a chance. Even if they win their next game, I feel like we close it out at LA. And regardless of the situation, it's just too much inconsistency with the team. Jordan Poole's not showing up. Klay Thompson, he gives you one good game. Barring Curry, everybody else offensively is not really there. So, I feel like they're done. No chance.
I didn't even speak on Klay Thompson when I was giving my thoughts on Game 4. But what a way to honor Kobe and Gigi in these last couple of games. Game 3, 5 for 14, 15 points. And Game 4, 3 for 11, 9 points. And obviously, we all know the 2 stupid shot attempts that he took in that fourth quarter that pretty much swayed the momentum in the Lakers' favor. But to answer this question, you can call me crazy a little bit, but I do believe the Warriors have a slight chance of coming back in this series, but it's a long uphill battle for these guys. And the way these guys got to go about the rest of this series is pretty much take this series game by game. And it starts with Game 5. These guys have to do what they've been doing throughout the course of this postseason, and that's protecting home court. They kind of slipped up doing that in the Sacramento series in Game 6. They did that to start off this series in Game 1. I feel like they got to go into Game 5 with the mentality, with the mentality, that their backs are against the wall. These guys know that it's a winner go home situation. You're going up against LeBron James, who smells blood in the water, and already has a 3-1 lead on you. So these guys got to win Game 5 in commanding fashion. And pretty much going into Game 6, they got to play the perfect game. There's just no way. There's no other way you can cut the cake. These guys have to play the perfect game on the road in Los Angeles. You had an opportunity to play the perfect game in Game 4. You came up a little bit short. You kind of have to just come in with that mindset, like, a very similar mindset that they came into in that Game 6 in 2016 when they went on the road in OKC to win that game. Although it took some heroics in that situation, they need somebody that's going to be able to put up some heroic performances in that Game 6 against Los Angeles Lakers. And then Game 7 at home, you kind of have to just give yourself a chance. It's a winner go home situation for both franchises. In a game where, it can go either way. Game 7, a winner takes all. Chips are on the table. And so you know, the right now the Warriors, I do think they got a slight chance, but at the end of the day, you know, I'm not sitting here with the utmost confidence saying, you know, the Warriors are going to come back and this series isn't over. But you know, I'm not going to go as far as throwing the white flag and say the series is over. But I do believe the Warriors have a slight chance. But you know, it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of these next couple of days pan out. You know, with Game 5 being tomorrow, when this episode drops, it'll be today, and then you know, I guess we'll go from there. But with that being said, I guess fun times lie ahead. But now we'll go ahead and move on. Aside from those two game fours and talk about tonight's game, a couple game fives that we had double headers. We had the 76ers go on the road to play the Boston Celtics after winning their game four in Philly. And they beat the Boston Celtics 115 to 103. So what are our thoughts on that?
I think we were waiting for Tyrese Maxey to have a really strong game, and he decided, you know, on the road against Boston that this would be the game that he showed up in. You know, not even just him. Tobias Harris showed up. James Harden showed up. Embiid had a really, really strong first half, and he showed up for this game. And, you know, when you're getting contributions from multiple guys like that at that level, I think it's really hard to beat this Philadelphia team. I mean, Embiid, like, the amount of this is why I feel like Embiid just doesn't get talked about enough as a defender. You know, we know how he is as a scorer. He's one of the best scorers in the league. He's had the scoring title back to back seasons. But like defensively, man, the way he's absolutely shook Boston whenever they've gone to the paint, I feel like everything is almost blockable for him. Whenever Tatum goes in or when Brown goes in, or Derek White, any of these guys drive in, Embiid has a hand on it, or he's altering that shot, or he's deterring them from going up. He's just been phenomenal on that end. And then offensively, I mean, I love how James Harden played today. He had a great combination of just being aggressive when he needed to be, passing when he had to be. And then Tyrese Maxey, you know, he did a great job attacking off the catch, getting to his spots, you know, hitting big shots. And then, you know, I was kind of worried about this team because I felt like at halftime, with how Boston was playing, that they should have been up by at least by 15. But third quarter, they did a great job of just staying locked in, even after Boston made a couple runs to cut it to like 10. They stuck with it, and then they're hitting big shots. So, you know, the Philadelphia 76ers, they're sitting up at 3-2, and I don't think anybody had thought about this 2 weeks ago that they'd be sitting here sitting 3-2. But, you know, on the other side of Boston, I mean, you know, I understand that Jason Tatum started off slow, 0 for 5, but this is what I talk about when I say people really need to stop calling this a 1A, 1B situation. People need to sit down and actually watch these Celtics games because Jason Tatum tried his absolute best to bring this team back and win it for them. I mean, he did everything he could. He was attacking the basket. He was playing defense. He was grabbing rebounds. And the same situation in game 4, you know, we talked about this, but, you know, game 4 in that second half, he was just an absolute monster everywhere. And meanwhile, Jaylen Brown in 3 losses for this team has disappeared in fourth quarters. I mean, like, what is there to talk about? When people say this is a 1A, 1B situation, are they even watching Jaylen Brown just stand that 3-point line, not do anything? Are they not watching Jason Tatum do his absolute best to put pressure on his Philadelphia team? I mean, I'm just disappointed with Jaylen Brown's effort. And, you know, in the post game, he was talking about the lack of shots, and, you know, he probably needs to get the ball more. But he's not the one that's demanding the ball. He has the ninth highest usage in the entire NBA. I think he takes the 6th most shots in the NBA. He has the opportunity available to him. It's on him to put pressure on this Philadelphia team. When he's put pressure on them, it's been hard to stop him. And so, you know, this Philadelphia 76ers team, they're sitting 1 win away from an Eastern Conference berth, which they haven't done since AI, which is, you know, ridiculous. And so shout out to them.
Man, big game for Maxey, man. We've been waiting for him to show up this series, you know, waiting for him to have his opportunity. He finally had it this game, you know. Him dropping, I think it was 30, and having Embiid drop 33. Harden, you know, he only took 8 shots, but ended with 17 and 10 assists. Tobias showed up, even, and a guy like Daniel House coming off the bench. He hasn't played much at all this playoffs or the season. He came in, gave a good 10 points, played good defensively on the defensive side of the ball, and I just feel like the Sixers wanted more, you know, offensively and defensively. And Embiid's just defensive monster. Ended the game with 4 blocks. He was there, you know, in the paint, you know, disturbing everybody, helping, just being a phenomenal help defender on that side of the ball. And offensively, he came and, you know, he showed up 33 points. But for me, Boston, man, I don't know. You know, Al Horford, you know, shooting, I think 9 for 42 from 3 this all playoffs, you know, both series. 0 for 7 again tonight. He was missing wide open shots. So they're kind of just letting him shoot wide open shots and just leaving him stranded and, you know, forcing him to shoot. And guys like, you know, Jaylen Brown and Tatum, you know, Jaylen Brown second half, he's always shying away from the ball. He's always deferring away from the ball. I don't know what's the issue with him and why he's doing that in late game situations. And Tatum always, with these slow starts, he started off, I think, 2 for 11 going into the second quarter. Him starting off slow is a big factor for the Celtics. Him not getting to rhythm, he doesn't help other guys get into rhythm. And it's the role player factor as well. Derek White not being the guy he was first round. Guys coming off the bench. Brogdon didn't shoot too well. Robert Williams didn't contribute. And it comes down to a two-man show. And I feel like Embiid, Maxey, and Harden, they got help from their role players. They got help from Maxey, they got help from Harris, and they got help from Daniel House Jr. from the bench. And that contributes a lot. Just being a more physical team, being more the dog of the between the two teams, and them coming out throwing the first punch in the first half and giving them that lead. I feel like that gave them the Sixers one. So shout out to the Sixers for being up. Celtics got to dig deep. They got to figure out what's going on between Tatum and Brown and see if they can come back in the fourth quarter. To figure something out, but. It's looking scary, Philadelphia, they got an opportunity to close at home and they're up 3-2. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, this is definitely one game I didn't want to miss tonight. I definitely wanted to catch this game 5. I wanted to see how the Celtics would respond after that. It's a very, very tough overtime for game 4 loss. And they came out very flat from start to finish. The 76ers took it to them the moment the ball got tipped off, and it felt like these guys just never took their foot off the gas, even when they had their moments throughout the course of this game, and the game was maybe in reach for the Celtics, maybe about a 9-11 point game. The 76ers dug deep, and they made sure that they locked in defensively. They made sure that their bucket getters hit tough shots. Joel Embiid, it almost felt like he was listening to our podcast episode, our very last episode, when I mentioned that James Harden was saving his legacy, because this guy came out and pretty much had a legacy performance. This guy just, with everything on the line, game 5 on the road, with an opportunity to go up 3-2 in a series where you're going up against a very, very tough Boston Celtics team that has pretty much had your number for the last 3 to 4 years. This guy came out, and this guy was very aggressive from start to finish. And, he finished with the way he finished, with 33 points and 7 boards, pretty much dominating the game. Joe Mazzulla didn't necessarily throw anything different at him, allowing guys like Al Horford playing one-on-one basketball with him, pick and roll action. Joel Embiid's getting to his mid-range spot, knocking down shots. It's just going to be tough to stop when you're not making any adjustments to those type of things. And so, this Boston Celtics team, these guys just, Jason Tatum doing his thing. Jaylen Brown, we talked about him in our last episode, not necessarily stepping up to the plate. He had an opportunity to do so in this fourth quarter, and I feel like, he had a couple shots go down, but when he went to the free throw line, in this fourth quarter, he had a lot of opportunity to kind of, close that gap. And he went to the free throw line one time. I remember he missed twice, and then he just kept going 1 for 2 for the rest of the way, and finishing the game for 3 for 8 from the line. And the majority of those free throws come in the fourth quarter. It's going to hurt your ball club, and so. These guys have been struggling to get contributions from guys like Al Horford. Al Horford's really struggled in this postseason as a whole, only hitting about 9 3-pointers, I believe, or maybe in this series. I'd have to fact check that. Not Grant Williams, but Malcolm Brogdon, a guy who's been very good for them off the bench, wasn't necessarily effective tonight. So all the credit in the world to Doc Rivers, man. This guy got contributions from all of his guys. Tyrese Maxey, a guy who's scored 0 points in fourth quarters from games 2 to 4, stepped up big. In that fourth quarter, he hit some tough buckets to silence the crowd. And Reggie Miller said it best. I think it was towards the end of that third quarter when the boos started raining down on the Boston Celtics. He said, it's no better feeling for a road team knowing that you've turned the home crowd against the home team. So, the Boston Celtics fans turned on their home team, and I think the Sixers knew at that point that they had the game locked up and sealed away. And Jason Tatum, he did all he could. He had to hit some tough shots down the stretch, but I'm sure you guys felt the same way, because I kind of had this feeling when I was watching this game. I kind of had a feeling where I was like, at some point these guys are going to make a run. The Celtics were hitting some tough shots. They were getting stops every now and then, but every time they'd get a stop, it would always end up in either a bad shot or a turnover, swaying the momentum back in the Sixers' favor, allowing the Sixers to push the pace in transition, get some easy buckets on the fast break. So, all the credit in the world to the Sixers, man. They had an excellent game plan, getting contributions from their 4 key guys in their starting lineup. All the guys were in double figures outside of PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker, of course, he's not an offensive guy. He's going to bring it on the defensive end, really get the best out of his guys. And Daniel House, man, I feel like this guy watched Lonnie Walker last night, and then he said, I want to have a similar performance like him. And with the minutes I'm getting in the fourth quarter, I got to contribute. Scoring majority of his points in that fourth quarter, really, slowing down the Celtics momentum. With James Harden on the bench at that time, I believe, or it was Joel Embiid to start the fourth quarter. So it's tough, man. The Celtics ball club, they rely heavily on that three ball, and this is something that's been a consistent theme throughout the course of the regular season. These guys shoot the three ball lights out throughout the course of the regular season, and then they've been very, very inconsistent in this postseason. So these guys have to, somehow, some way, knock down the three ball to kind of allow the game to space out a lot of these guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to do their thing. Jaylen Brown, of course, we talked about his comments last game, kind of gave me a little bit of a reminder of what Julius Randle said coming out of that game 4 loss that I didn't talk about, where he said, the Miami Heat just wanted it more than us. It's just a slouch effort, man. That's not the mindset you want to come into to the next game with, especially coming off a bad loss. So like Big H mentioned, these guys got to dig deep. It's a tough road game for the Boston Celtics going into Game 6. You're going into a place where you already won before. You won one game there. You split the 2 games there so far. So you got to go into Game 6 with a mindset. His backs are against the wall. It's a do or die situation. Win or go home. They got to come out guns blazing. But while I was watching this game and the outcome being the way it was, I kind of had a question or overreaction, not an overreaction statement that I was thinking about, which is, we're watching the Celtics franchise collapse right in front of our eyes.
Overreaction. I think as long as Jason Tatum is a Boston Celtic, I think they'll be fine. Whether Jaylen Brown leaves, I think this team will remain just a contending team as long as they get back pieces for whatever Jaylen Brown's worth, and they keep Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is always going to be a player that can keep your team afloat. I mean, the Boston Celtics, whenever Jaylen Brown has went out, Jason Tatum's did a phenomenal job in putting this team in positions that they can win in, and I think it's them collapsing and them falling apart. I think that would be an overreaction. Even if they end up losing this series, they're still a fairly young team. They got pieces around them. They can trade a guy like Jaylen, even if Jaylen Brown wants to leave. I think whatever outcome they have after that, Jason Tatum being there is enough for this team.
Yeah, I think it's an overreaction. Even if they let Jaylen Brown go this offseason, they can get some pieces back, and they still got a guy like Tatum, top 7 player in the NBA that they can build around. They still got some nice pieces on the team right now, and it just feel like it's too early to say, it's overreaction for this team to be a failure. And I feel like, they're going on forward with Tatum on this team. They still can, build them around even if Jaylen Brown leaves. And I feel like, they can get pieces back for that. So overreaction for me.
I think it's not an overreaction, and my reason for that is I feel like this Celtics team isn't the same Celtics team from last year. And this goes all the way back into the offseason where Ime Udoka gets suspended indefinitely and they have to go in a different direction, bringing in a guy that was already on the coaching staff in Joe Mazzulla, and they made this guy the head coach of this ball club. And I feel like, they were successful throughout the regular season, but, in this postseason, I feel like Joe Mazzulla is a guy that definitely should be taking some of the heat, at least, for the defensive problems that these guys have been having. These guys are a team that used to be great on that side of the ball. They had an identity on that side of the ball, and I feel like with the way these guys have been playing in the first round and second round, they're just not that same team defensively. And it starts with, their head coach, of course, not really building the foundation, not really, figuring out the identity of this team. And there's a lot of guys on this team that lack effort out there on the floor. One being Jaylen Brown, a guy that I consider to be 1B in the situation between him and Jason Tatum, not really bringing it on that side of the ball. He's struggled heavily in this series trying to contain James Harden. James Harden has pretty much had his way outside of those 2 stinker games, but I feel like now that we're 5 games into this series, I feel like I can go ahead and confidently say that was just on James Harden, not necessarily getting his footing, and not necessarily on the Boston Celtics defense giving him a lot of trouble, because outside of those 2 games where he struggled, he's had a great series. This guy hasn't been a true problem, whether it's been scoring, whether it's been facilitating, getting the offense going. Jaylen Brown, a guy who's supposed to be, one of their best defensive players, hasn't really been doing a good enough job at containing James Harden in this series. So, I'm gonna go and say it's a little bit of it's not an overreaction. I feel like the Celtics team, if they move on from Jaylen Brown in this offseason or in the next offseason, what kind of direction are these guys going to go in? These guys don't end up winning a championship together. What's next? Obviously, we know Jason Tatum's a hell of a player, But are you guys are the Celtics gonna just retool up this roster, kind of move off from guys that have been here for quite some time, guys like Marcus Smart, guys like Al Horford, guys like Robert Williams? What's the plan after that? Because this the Boston Celtics each and every year they're very confident in what they got because they know they have Jaylen Brown and they know they have Jason Tatum, and then of course all the other pieces around them like Marcus Smart and Horford and Robert Williams. But once you move on from one of those key pieces and somebody else has to step up, it also depends on who you bring in for that next spot. So for that to be that next guy to Jason Tatum. So, it's embarrassing to watch what these guys have been putting out on display, especially in this series and against a team that they've dominated heavily over the course of these last 2 to 3 years. And so it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the offseason if they somehow, some way don't win Game 6 in Philly or just lose Game 7 and just lose the series as a whole. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and move on to the last game of tonight. We had the Phoenix Suns go up against the Denver Nuggets in Game 5, home game for the Denver Nuggets, and the Denver Nuggets were able to protect home court by winning this game 118-102 to take a 3-2 series lead going into Game 6, I believe, on Thursday. So thoughts on that?
I definitely had a feeling that this was going to be an MPJ game, considering how he struggled in the last game, and he was going to be at home this time. And he came out red hot, 14 points off the bat, just hitting It felt like he was due for a game where he was going to hit some shots, and they got contributions from their role players, and I feel like that Denver fatigue really got to the Phoenix Suns, man. Even for a guy like Devin Booker, who he was hobbled, I'll give him that. I think he was injured, and he had an ankle problem, and that Denver fatigue you could just see in their legs. And Kevin Durant, again, he was struggling. He's gonna show 10 for 22, 45%, but he at one point he was 7 for 18. He was really struggling to get his shot off, and as I said before, this guy, he's very jumper reliant. And when your legs are basically short and you're not getting to the basket, it's very tough to generate shots, easy shots for yourself. And everything is a tough shot for Kevin Durant. Even when he had those 2 buckets over Jeff Green, they were very, very, very tough shots. And so, the Nuggets in this game, they were much better from the 3-point line. They got better contributions from their guys, and Bruce Brown came in. I love what the 2 Browns bring for this team. It's just a lot of high energy. Bruce Brown goes in, drives to the basket, plays defense, and the same thing with Christian Brown. He's a high energy guy. Same way as he was in Kansas. He comes in, he plays defense, he pushes the ball, and that's exactly what this Denver team needed. And if you're the Phoenix Suns, DeAndre Ayton again, like I think at this point, this was probably honestly, this was sealed the deal for them. Probably going to be moving on for DeAndre Ayton. This was the game that they're going to look back and be like, okay, we're going to get rid of DeAndre Ayton because the effort is just absurd, man.
Yeah, the difference of the last game and this game to me, was that the role players of Denver getting involved. Bruce Brown coming off the bench, contributing 25 points. Big 25 points from him, for the team. MPJ, started off hot, 14 points quick in the first quarter and like first 2 minutes of the second quarter. Jokic, and another triple double, and Jamal Murray finished the game on 19 points. So they got everybody on the starting lineup contributed for them. They got Bruce Brown off the bench. The role players showing up, and it was typical Denver fashion. Typical Denver offense. Them moving the ball, them getting their threes, them getting their shots, and Jokic just playing bully ball and aim. And Nuggets, I feel like they're not Nuggets. I feel like the Suns, they came into this game and they look pretty tired to me. I feel like they got punched in the mouth early. They gave a big lead. They weren't making their shots. They were missing their corner shots, their open threes in the corner from Okogie, even from I forgot what's his name, Tuna Shamit. And their role player guys, they didn't contribute at all. And guys, like Aiden, the guy that they paid in this offseason, big money, and he's just looking not part of the team whatsoever. He's just looking out of it offensively and defensively. And, KD started off the game kind of struggling. He started off, I think it was 3 for 11. The stat sheet is going to show 10 for 24, 27 points. But he started off struggling early on in the game. D-Book low-key had it going, but he wasn't shooting the ball much. They played good defense on him early on, and it was a big lead towards the end of the third, entering the fourth, and D-Book kind of scored, some late garbage points. So they had him up to like 20 points, and they played fantastic defense on him. And he was down to, to have a bad game sooner or later. And this was a game that they much needed to go up 3-2, head back to Phoenix for this game. But Denver, they stopped that. So, Jokic, Bruce Brown, guys like Jamal Murray, MPJ, guys like Aaron Gordon, they played a fantastic game today. As a team, Mike Maloney made some adjustments. He got his guys going. And it was a win much needed for them. So, they're up 3-2. I think they close it off next game.
I said it in our last episode, when the Phoenix Suns, went 2-0 on their home floor and the series was tied 2-2, that I was still extremely confident in this Denver Nuggets ball club simply because of the way those two games were played. It was never a point in those two games where I feel like the Suns were just a more dominant team. Obviously, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, we've talked about these guys for the last 2 months as a duo and what they're going to bring as a scoring punch. And, they had their way in Phoenix. They had about 158 points combined in those two games. Uh, just two of those guys alone. And they got contributions from their role players in both those games, and that's why they were able to win those games at home and protect home court. But as I've always said throughout the course of this postseason, their inconsistencies coming off the bench will be an issue, and their lack of depth will be an issue. And it was put on display tonight. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker did not have it going tonight. Devin Booker started off a little hot, finishing with 10 points coming out of that first quarter. But outside of that, he pretty much the Denver Nuggets did a hell of a job at blitzing him, making him very, very uncomfortable, and taking away his shot and forcing other guys to beat them. Outside of him and Kevin Durant, they did a hell of a job with that adjustment. And I feel like the game was won in that third quarter. The Denver Nuggets scored 39 points to the Phoenix Suns 25, and the defense that was being put out there on display in that third quarter from the Denver Nuggets was just amazing. They did a great job at containing Booker, containing Kevin Durant, not allowing those guys to get their easy shots off. And outside of those two guys, you can't really rely on anybody else to score the basketball. Landry Shamet, the guy who was the neighborhood hero coming out of game 4, finished tonight with 23 minutes, 2 for 6, 6 points. I believe he hit 1 3-pointer in comparison to the 4 he hit in game 4 in that fourth quarter alone. And so, these guys got Jokic, for the Denver Nuggets, Jokic, he was almost as if he watched Joel Embiid's performance against the Boston Celtics, the game before, and said, I'm just going to go out there and dominate myself. Finished with a 29-point triple-double, made it look easy. Jokic is just, as we all know, is a true problem because you can't necessarily double him because of how great of a passer he is, and everybody else was just eating. They got contributions from Michael Porter Jr. Welcome to the party. He started off the game extremely hot, giving the Denver Nuggets a very, very good cushion, a very good lead. Obviously he finished with 19 points, but at the end of the day, they got some contributions from him. Aaron Gordon stepped up a little bit as well with 10 points, 6 rebounds. Jamal Murray, a quiet 19 points. And then, of course, the hero for the Denver Nuggets in this game was Bruce Brown coming off their bench, giving them a 25-point bomb in this game. And so it's just going to be tough to beat the Denver Nuggets team when, especially when those two guys, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, don't have it going. Who are the Suns going to rely on? And DeAndre Ayton, a guy that they paid in this offseason, still don't understand why they ended up matching his contract with how that offseason went. Him and Monty Williams not speaking throughout the offseason all the way up into training camp. It should be, a red flag there between those two guys and their relationship. And for the rest of the team, I just feel like outside of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and maybe Chris Paul, I feel like the rest of the guys don't really mess with each other like that. These guys don't necessarily, have that team chemistry that you would expect from a championship level team. So, Denver Nuggets did what they were supposed to do. They protected home court, and now they're going in with the utmost confidence into Phoenix, knowing that they let 2 games slip there in games 3 and 4, and they know that they can go into game 6 on the road and win and steal a game and close out the series. And so for the Phoenix Suns, these guys better hope and pray that Devin Booker and Kevin Durant just kind of have those similar performances that they had in either game 3 and 4, where those guys are they got it going. Devin Booker has 40, Kevin Durant has 35, pretty much close to 40. And I think Chris Paul might be available in that game. I believe he did come out and say that he's trying to get back out there on the floor. I'm not too sure how much of a difference Chris Paul would be in this series. He struggled heavily in those first 2 games leading up to his injury. So I can't confidently sit here and say, Chris Paul is going to be the true difference maker in this series whatsoever. So, all the credit in the world to the Denver Nuggets for making their adjustments in this game, really taking the game, by the throat and in that third quarter and not looking back. This is a game that they needed to blow. This is a game that they needed to do, to come out with. They needed to blow these guys off the floor, especially with the way they played in game 3 and 4, letting those 2 games slip. And, now we move on to game 6. But with that being said, I think that pretty much wraps up all of our recaps for tonight. What are we thinking? Final words?
Let's wrap this round up, man. Let's get to these conference finals. Let's wrap it up.
Can't wait for tomorrow, man.
Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up,
A lot
man.
of agenda's gonna be pushed tomorrow. I can't wait.
Let's wrap it up, man.
A lot of guys have been waiting for this moment, you know, to watch this Warriors dynasty fall, man. You know, I look at this beanie that I have right here on my lap, you know, and now in my hand. F this beanie, bro. These guys are not gonna.
I ain't gonna expose you on here. I'm gonna leave you alone. I'm gonna let you rock. You feel me?
Okay, you gonna let me rock, big bro.
I'm gonna let you rock.
These guys ain't doing nothing, man. I think the Warriors come out and win this series in 7, but we got some interesting basketball left to play, and of course, with that being said, we have the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals to talk about in a little bit. We just got to get through these next couple of games. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and close out this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd greatly appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.